In today's podcast, you'll learn expressions connected to regrets so that you can reflect on what you did in the past and look back with a critical eye. We've all made mistakes. Sometimes we might consider our mistakes stupid, but don't feel bad because we'll also share 10 really stupid things that people do so that you can put your mistakes in context. Welcome to
Aprender Inglés with Reza and Craig.
Hello and welcome to the podcast, especially if you're a new listener. I'm Craig.
And I'm Reza.
And with nearly 60 years of teaching English between us, we'll help you improve it and take it to the next level. Reza, how are you?
I'm fine, Craig. I'm feeling okay. I'm quite proud that I haven't done anything that stupid today yet. Quite an unusual day for me. How about you?
Well, it's still early. Give it time. I mean, it's only lunchtime. Well, I have done many stupid things in the past. And what we're going to do in this episode is look at some expressions you can use to look back at what you have did.
That's the first stupid thing you've done.
That's the first stupid thing I've said on the podcast, so that you can look back on things that you have done in the past and express your regrets. So let's get started with some expressions for you. And one thing you can say if you've done something silly in the past is looking back on it now. So you're thinking what you have done in the past and what you did in the past, and you're looking back on something, looking back on it now. Can you think of an example, Reza, of something that you look back on?
Looking back on it now, I should have studied more when I was younger because I like learning things, but it's much more difficult to study. Not impossible, but much more difficult when you're older. So looking back on it now, I wish I'd studied for a bit longer when I was younger. What about you?
Yeah, me too. I wish I had studied specific things when I was younger, like maybe audio-visual studies or something to do with new media. One thing I want to highlight is the grammar Reza used there. He said, I should have studied. So he's using the have to put the modal verb should in the past, because remember, we're talking about things in the past. And then he said, I wish I had studied. So he's using the past perfect grammar after wish. I wish I had.
Another expression people often use, or when they know they've done something they shouldn't, something silly perhaps, they say in hindsight. So going back to my earlier example, I could say, in hindsight, I wish I'd studied more when I was younger. It means the same as, looking back on it now, I wish I'd studied more when I was younger. In hindsight. So hindsight is being able to see things, sight, more clearly because they're behind you. And now that you're older and you've done them, you realize what you should have done.
And when we speak about sight and things that you can see, if you go and get your eyes tested and you have 20/20 vision, that means your eyes are perfect. You can see absolutely perfectly. Well, of course, if you know what you should have done in the past, then it's very clear, isn't it? It's clear what you should have done. So that's where we get the expression that hindsight is always 20/20, because when you're looking back, you know what you should have done or what you shouldn't have done. A similar expression to in hindsight is in retrospect. In retrospect, which is also looking back. So I could say in retrospect, I should have studied new media at school.
Quite often, to justify having done something silly in the past, you might say, it seemed like a good idea at the time. So that's a very common way of saying that you know now that it isn't a good idea, but you really thought it was at the time you did it. So you say, it seemed like a good idea at the time.
I can remember once there was a bonfire in my friend's garden. He was burning some old wood and some old furniture, and there was quite a big fire in his back garden. And I saw some tar paper. Do you know what tar paper is?
No.
It's very hard paper that is impermeable, which means water doesn't pass through it. And to make it even stronger, you have a layer of this hard paper and then some tar, which is what's on the roads. The roads where you drive your car, it's tar actually on the road. So the very, very thin layer of tar between two layers of this hard paper. So I threw this on the fire. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but what I didn't realize was when the paper started burning, the tar got really hot and started jumping out of the fire. And I still have marks and scars on my arm from that tar paper because it burned me and the tar stuck to my skin.
Wow. You've still got the scars today.
Yeah, you can just about see them where the tar jumped out and stuck to my skin. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but in retrospect, it was a silly thing to do.
You should have known better.
I should have known better.
That's another expression we use when we're talking about silly things that we've done. I should have known better. Or you could say it to another person. I said to Craig, you should have known better. Or maybe not. Maybe I shouldn't expect that because he was young. But if it were an adult, I would definitely say you should have known better. But I guess as a kid, you didn't realize that the tar was very flammable. No, you didn't realize.
No, I didn't know. I didn't know at the time. No. Notice Reza's pronunciation of should have. He said should have. I should have known better, or you should have known better. Another stupid thing I did, I was playing with my friend in the garden and I was round about the same age. And there was this stick. It was like a long piece of cane that we used to use for growing vegetables, where the vegetables would wind their way up the cane so it would keep the plant straight. Do you remember those cane sticks?
Yeah.
I threw one to the back of the garden. I didn't know where my friend was, and it hit him in the middle of the head. His head started bleeding. There was a big gash. It was a really serious injury. He had to go to the hospital and get stitches. But if it had been just 1.5 inches lower, he would have lost an eye. I would have taken out his eye, and I should have known better.
Do you know, a very similar accident occurred with me, and it was my fault. But instead of a stick, I threw a brick. We were fooling around as kids where a building had just been demolished and there was a lot of loose rubble. That's lots of bricks, destroyed walls. And we thought it was a good idea to throw these things around. So I picked my bit up and just threw it without looking. And it hit one of my friends on the head.
Wow.
Not near his eye, but his head was bleeding profusely. And it was an accident, but I just ran away thinking, oh no, I'm in big trouble now. So then it looked like I'd done it on purpose because everybody was thinking, well, where is he? I just felt really bad.
You should have known better.
Should have, yeah.
You should have known better. I can also say I wasn't thinking, or I wasn't thinking straight. If you're thinking straight, you're thinking logically. And of course, with our two examples there, we were children, we were kids, but we weren't thinking straight. We weren't thinking logically. It was a stupid thing to do.
If it was really stupid, someone might say to you, how stupid was that? I mean, Craig, throwing a sharp object without looking where you're going, where you know there's other people? How stupid was that?
What an idiot I was is another expression you could use in retrospect to speak about silly things you've done. What an idiot I was, and how stupid was that?
Another expression is, when you put it like that, this is an interesting one. This is an expression which shows that the person who says it is now reflecting. So maybe they hadn't really thought about it before, or maybe they've heard something which makes them think about something in a different way. And they will say, well, when you put it like that, imagine I was speaking to Craig and I said to him, Craig, I don't know why my girlfriend has left me. You know, I was really nice to her. I bought her lots of presents. And then Craig reminded me, yeah, you bought her lots of presents, etc. But you hardly spend any time with her. You may have bought her flowers every day and really great things for her birthday, but you only actually spent about 20 minutes together every day. And I could say, oh, well, when you put it like that, I hadn't thought about that. I bought her great presents, but yeah, I didn't spend any time with her. It's true. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that aspect of the problem. When you put it like that, yeah, it's no surprise she left me.
Yeah, or I could say, yeah, you bought her flowers and you bought her chocolates, but she did have hay fever and diabetes. So when you put it like that,
giving her the chocolates, I was killing her with kindness.
Come to think of it, you could say, come to think of it, yeah, that wasn't a good idea. Come to think of it, I made a mistake. Come to think of it, I shouldn't have done it. Or now that I think of it, I made a mistake. Now that I think of it, I wish I hadn't invested in Tesla shares.
Yeah,
now that I think of it.
Did you? Are you speaking hypothetically, or did you do it?
No, I didn't. I didn't invest in Tesla, no. But I might have done.
Do you know anybody, out of curiosity, who's invested in Bitcoin?
I know some people indirectly. So I have friends online, people I've met at conferences, etc., that have Tesla shares and also have, invested in Bitcoin. I do know people.
How's Bitcoin doing these days? I know obviously Tesla shares are falling rapidly. This is May 2025. They may have gone up since then, but right now they're falling. How's Bitcoin doing?
I know it's volatile. I know it's up and down, but I'm not sure exactly where it is at the moment. Because I haven't invested, I'm not really following it, but it has been really volatile, I think, that over the last few months since Trump came to power. Remember, you can see all of these expressions in the show notes to this episode. Go to inglespodcast.com/575 and you'll see a list of all of these expressions. And the next one is very useful as well. If only I had known, which often gets contracted, doesn't it? If only I had known. So that I had becomes I'd. If only I had known how much property prices would increase, maybe I wouldn't have invested.
You could invert that. When we say an inversion, it means you change the order. So instead of saying, if only I had known, or imagine the word only isn't there. If I had known, if only I had known, put the word had first and get rid of the word if, and it means the same thing. So instead of saying, if I had known, or if only I had known, you could say, had I known? And it means the same thing. Had I known Tesla shares were going to drop so much, I wouldn't have bought so many, for example. Had I known is the same as, if only I had known.
And a similar expression to that is, little did I know. Little did I know, or little did I know that. For example, little did I know that one day I would be living in Spain. If only I had known I would be living in Spain, I would have learned Spanish at school instead of French.
Me too. I learned French at school and not a word of Spanish.
Little did we know. Yeah, little did we know.
I wish I hadn't is a negative sentence, obviously. So it's to express regret for something that you've definitely done, but you shouldn't have done it. For example, I wish I hadn't drunk so much whiskey last night because now I don't feel so good.
Is that true?
It's not true, no.
Oh, okay.
It's just figurative. It's an example. I wish I hadn't drunk so much whiskey. If only I hadn't drunk some whiskey, or had I not drunk so much whiskey, they all would mean the same sort of thing.
One that is true for me, I wish I hadn't stayed up so late last night because I wouldn't feel so tired now. I wish I hadn't stayed up and watched so much TV.
Were you watching ordinary TV or were you using a streaming service?
I was watching a very interesting and quite violent TV series called Gangs of London that I'm watching at the moment. And yeah, I went to bed far too late.
Would you recommend that series?
If you like violence and blood and people killing each other, yeah, it's good. But
and you do?
If
just your cup of tea, is it?
If not, then maybe it definitely isn't for kids. It's not for children. Now, these expressions that we've just demonstrated. Things like, if only I had known, I wish I hadn't, or I wish I had. You can find in other podcasts that we've done in the past. Go to episode 31. Well, Reza, that was a long time ago. We spoke about mixed conditionals and expressions with if only and I wish. Go to inglespodcast.com/31. And a lot more recently, we spoke about regrets and expressing regrets. That's episode 442. So again, inglespodcast.com/442.
Am I right in saying that episode 31, which you've mentioned, that would have been recorded about 10 years ago now, or more than 10 years ago?
9 or 10.
10 years, about 10 years ago, yeah. Little did we know then that we would still be broadcasting 10 years later. Little did we know. We didn't know, did we? We really didn't.
There's been a lot of water under the bridge, as they say. We've mentioned a few things that we regret doing and not doing in the past, but maybe you have some examples of your own. If you do, we'd love to hear them, and we'll explain how you can contact us at the end of the podcast. But don't feel bad about things that you should or shouldn't have done in the past, because people do some really stupid things, don't they, Reza?
Yes, we know the stupid. We may even have done it already and we got into trouble. We knew it was stupid, and yet we do it again. And the first one is a classic, and I admit I've done it more than once. I don't know why. I have used a metal fork in a toaster.
Oh, that's a really dangerous thing to do.
I know I shouldn't do it, and I've done it more than once, and more than once I've broken the toaster. I'm lucky I didn't electrocute myself, but breaking the toaster just to get out one piece of toast, how stupid was that? Why did I do it? I was impatient. I was in a rush. I really wanted that bit of toast, and I had to leave the house in 5 minutes, and I was determined to get that bit of toast out of the toaster. So I took a risk. I used a metal fork, and I broke the toaster, and I've done it twice.
So let that be a lesson to you. Don't use a metal fork or anything metal if you're trying to get something out of a toaster. Use a wooden spoon. Another stupid thing that people have done, posting crimes on social media. I don't know if you followed this recent story, Reza. In the media, they've spoken about a tree in the UK that was cut down. And it was called the Sycamore Gap tree, or the Robin Hood tree. It was in Northumberland in the UK, and it was cut down in September 2023. And the two men who stupidly cut down this tree filmed it on social media, which is how the police caught them. And it was this beautiful old tree in a lovely part of the UK. It was very famous in the area. And these two idiots cut it down with a chainsaw and filmed themselves on social media. How stupid was that?
And why did they cut it down? What was the motivation for cutting it down?
They said it seemed like a good idea at the time, which was one of the expressions we used. They just did it for fun. They thought it was a good thing to do at the time, a good idea. How stupid was that?
I remember reading not long ago about a true case of someone who committed a crime, and some people were witnesses and suspected they knew who it was, and he was someone who had been in trouble with the law before. The police followed their lead from the witnesses, the clues, and they published photos of the suspect from his social media pages. But the suspect thought that they were really bad photos of him. And this angered him because he looked bad in the photos. So he wrote to the police somewhere in social media saying that those photos were terrible and he didn't look like that at all. And he sent much clearer photos of himself. I'm not joking. I'm not making it up. And it's true, the photos that the police had of him weren't that good. So he sent much better ones saying, this is what I really looked like, where he looked a bit more attractive and they were much clearer. And then immediately they were able to identify him and got him. So they couldn't really identify him till he went out of his way to identify himself and send better pictures. What an idiot.
How stupid was that, eh? How stupid was that? Which is also similar to another one we have on the list here at number 8 in our list of 10 stupid things people do, breaking into a house and leaving your phone behind. So you burgled a house, you've broken in, and then you've left your mobile phone there, which makes it really easy for the police to find you. So, yeah, someone obviously wasn't thinking straight.
Another classic, but people do it. I know it's hard to believe, but people do it. They use a candle, which of course has a naked flame, that means real fire, to find a gas leak. A leak, L-E-A-K, is when a liquid or gas is coming out of somewhere it's not supposed to come out of.
It's escaping.
It's escaping. So if you have a leak, it's very, very dangerous. So the last thing on earth you want to do is have fire anywhere near it. But there are people who don't know where the gas leak is. There's no light. They can't see. And they light a candle. And if they're unlucky, boom. Then, of course, the gas explodes. So they found the leak, that's for sure.
Yeah, they should have known better. Let's take a quick break here because I know you listen to this podcast to take your English to the next level. But what about your speaking? Is your fluency improving? Are you happy with your speaking skills? My conversation course focuses on making you a more confident and more fluent English speaker. You'll join me and a small group of motivated students, and we'll meet on Zoom and have topical discussions, role plays, debates, and presentations that will expand your vocabulary and help you express yourself effectively in English. So be proactive and take the first step towards becoming a confident and fluent English speaker. Send me an email today to craig@inglespodcast.com and I'll send you details of the next online conversation course. Thanks for listening. Now let's get back to the podcast. Now, you may think that if your clothes are wet, one of the best ways to dry your clothes quickly is to put them in a microwave. That is definitely not a good idea. They may very well catch fire if you put them in a microwave. And I can remember a story years ago where an old lady put her cat in the microwave to dry the cat off and, of course, unfortunately, killed the cat. So not a good idea to put some things in a microwave just to get them dry. Another one which perhaps is forgivable for younger people or people who don't know, the first time anyway, is pouring water on a grease or an oil fire. It makes it worse. Makes it worse. I must admit, when I was very, very young, I did this because I didn't know at first, but I learnt my lesson. I only did it once. Was there a fire in your kitchen? Well, the chip pan where we were making chips, it got a bit too hot and a little bit of fire started to come out. So I thought, get water on it quick. And then a lot more fire came out. So I learnt my lesson that you don't put water when the fire is coming out of grease or oil because it makes even more flame come out. There are certain fires which you don't put water on. But I didn't know, but I learned the hard way and I've never done it again since. Yeah, in retrospect, it's not the best way to put out a fire. To put out is to extinguish a fire. So what is the best way to put out an oil fire or a grease fire? Well, if it's, for example, in your kitchen, so imagine first of all, if you're using gas, turn off the gas if you can. I guess if it's electric, you don't need to worry about that. But if it's a gas ring, turn that off. And then you throw a towel or something similar over the pan. A blanket, maybe, to block the oxygen supply. Right. Because fire needs oxygen to burn. So by cutting off the oxygen supply, the fire will go out. That's the way you do it. The next stupid thing we've got on the list is using a chainsaw while you are on a ladder. Now, if you're trimming your tree, if you're cutting branches off of a tree, for example, you need a ladder if the tree is very tall because you need to get to the top. And a chainsaw is a saw that has a chain that goes around and it's powered usually by petrol. And obviously it moves around a lot. And if you're on a ladder, it's not easy to control and very, very dangerous. You could end up losing an arm or a leg or killing yourself if you fall off the ladder with a chainsaw. And another thing that I thought of is sawing the branch of the tree that you're sitting on.
Yes.
Would not be the best thing to do.
But people have done it.
But people have done
They
it.
sat on the wrong side.
You usually see that on cartoons, don't you?
Yeah. I have a fear of chainsaws, not a phobia or anything like that. It's just that I've never used a chainsaw and I never would. I just don't trust myself. You only need to make a slight mistake and you could literally, in half a second, cut your leg off. I just don't trust myself with one. I wouldn't use a chainsaw. Have you, or would you use a chainsaw?
I have used a chainsaw, and you have to use them with a lot of respect. They are dangerous, or potentially dangerous instruments, but very effective. I mean, it's just so easy to cut wood with a chainsaw, but you've got to be very, very careful.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. They're too effective. So if it actually accidentally goes towards your leg, it's too effective, and your leg, in the blink of an eye, will come off. That's what worries me.
In the blink of an eye, very quickly. Next on the list, we've got using a phone charger in the bathtub. So in Spain here, it's not very common to have a bath. It's much more common to have a shower. But in the UK, growing up, I did used to have a bath. And I guess it's not a good idea to put anything with a charger or anything electrical near water, is it? Have you ever charged your phone next to the bath?
No, I don't even like the idea of plugging things in bathrooms. I'd prefer not to. I prefer the only things that I would use in a bathroom are things where you have to, or it's quite handy, like an electric razor to shave, or perhaps a hair dryer. But I don't like the idea of using too many electrical appliances in a bathroom because of all the water around. Water and electricity is a bad mixture.
Yeah. Now that I think of it, I absolutely agree. Yeah. I don't have anything electric in the bathroom.
A charger, if it fell into the bathroom, it might electrocute you. If it fell into the bathtub, I beg your pardon, or it might not. Who knows? But please, listeners, under no circumstances should you make toast beside the bath. That will definitely kill you. In fact, there have been cases of people deliberately killing other people by throwing in a toaster into the bath. That will almost certainly kill you. That's for sure. Never make toast in a toaster beside the bath. Do not do it under any circumstances.
Why would you? Why would you do it? Another common silly mistake is using the word password as your password. Imagine you have a mobile phone or a laptop or a computer. Typing in the word password is not a good idea. I knew someone who had as their password incorrect, because when you try to put in a password, if it's wrong, the computer always says your password is incorrect. So they used incorrect as their password.
That's quite clever, actually.
That is quite clever. But yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, also not a very good idea as a password. No. Or just using the word password is probably a bit silly.
And last but not least, but I think we've all been slightly or partially guilty of this, believing everything, or even some things, that you see on social media without checking the facts. You see it on Instagram, you see it on YouTube, whatever, and you think, oh, well, look, a lot of people are watching it. It's got 2 million followers or X thousand likes or whatever. It must be right. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Check your facts. Things get made up, and a lot of people believe them. And just because lots of people believe something, or just because something's repeated a lot, doesn't mean it's true.
That's right. Always check your sources and double check with other sources. Make sure that what you believe is actually true. Reza, what are your biggest regrets?
Ooh, where do I begin?
Where do I begin to tell the story?
Quite a few, actually. Do you know what? Something I've just started thinking about in the last couple of years. I don't have any children of my own. I think I'd quite like to. You weren't expecting me to say that, were you?
No, because it's not a subject that we've spoken about. I don't think we have really talked about kids. I don't have kids either. I don't regret not having kids, and I'm surprised that you might regret. So why?
I'm not sure if I regret it. I'm not sure. But just in hindsight, I asked myself, might I have been a good father? I don't know. So I don't regret it, but looking back, I think, I wonder what it would have been like.
But it's never too late. Never say never.
It's almost too late for me. Not quite.
You've still got time. You've still got time. I don't regret not having kids, but I do regret hurting people's feelings in the past. I think looking back on it now in relationships from years ago, I did stupid things and said stupid things that had hurt people's feelings and needlessly, which means there wasn't any real reason apart from selfishness. So the younger Craig said and did things that in retrospect he shouldn't have done. And I don't know why I'm speaking about myself in the third person, but I regret some things I said and done years ago when I was involved in other relationships.
Me too. Craig, that's what you've done. What about what you haven't done? Is there anything you regret not doing in the past? You didn't do it, but you should have done it.
Well, I already mentioned I wish I had studied Spanish at school and not French, because maybe I'd be speaking on Spanish a lot better, and I can't speak French either. But more seriously, maybe spending more time with my parents when they were alive. I was lucky enough to live here in Spain with them and see them quite often in their later years, but there was about 10 years when I was traveling around the world, not being in the same country. So maybe it would have been nice to have spent more time with them during those years. What about you?
Actually, the same. I wish I had spent more time with my parents, particularly my father, who's no longer with us. My mum's still alive, but once someone's gone, they've gone. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, Craig, some people, however, say they don't really have any regrets. What do you think about those people who say they don't have any regrets?
I think it's a positive thing. It can be a positive thing not to have regrets. I think it means that you don't waste time looking back and imagining a different hypothetical past and giving you a hypothetical current situation. I wish I had done that. I wish I hadn't. It's not very productive, is it? It doesn't really help because you can't do anything to change the past. However, it could be that the person is very self-centered and they don't think they have ever done anything wrong, in which case it could be a bit of an ego trip or an ego boost. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree more with the second part than the first part of your answer. In fact,
you think everyone should have regrets then?
Yeah, I think there's one of two or both reasons for explaining why people say they have no regrets. They're either stupid or selfish or both. For me, there can't be any other explanation. You can be simply stupid. You didn't learn anything from your mistakes. Or selfish. Maybe you learned, but you don't give a damn.
But maybe
or even worse, both stupid and selfish.
But don't you think there is something to be said for people who admit that they make mistakes but don't regret the mistakes because it was a decision they made at the time based on the way they were feeling and the information they had at the time? So it doesn't help to regret things because you can't change the past anyway.
I think it does help to regret things.
How?
Because you can change the future. Yeah, you can't change the past, but if you regret having done something in the future, well, hopefully you won't do it again. But if you don't regret it, maybe you will do it again, you know? So for me, I'm very mistrustful of people who say they have no regrets. I instantly mistrust people who say they have no regrets. So, for example, that includes 99.9% of all politicians. Believe it or not, I mistrust.
They never admit their mistakes, do they?
Call me crazy. And people like that who, no, I've never really done anything to regret. I just instantly mistrust someone. I think I've done loads of things. Today, I've done about 5 things that I regret. Never mind in my life. Today, there's nothing that you regret? Really? Can't trust someone who says that. Not me.
Do you regret having that second piece of chocolate cake?
Yes. But it's not the end of the world, is it?
Hindsight is always 2020.
Here's a slightly unusual question, perhaps, or very particular. Why do we sometimes let other people, so not ourselves, other people make bad decisions on our behalf, but we let them do it? So an important decision has to be made that's going to affect your life a lot. You let someone else make the decision. You think, I don't really like that decision, but I'll let them do it. And you play along with it. Why do we do that? Why do we let people make really bad decisions on our behalf?
Well, it's trust, isn't it? I mean, if you think of accountants that you put your trust in, or doctors, or financial advisors, other professionals who you think are in a better position to make a decision for you, then you trust what they tell you, and you trust that what they say is the thing to do. So maybe that's it. Maybe there's a trust factor.
Yeah. Do you think you just have to trust people sometimes?
I don't think you have to, but I think you have to. If you go to a dentist or a doctor, for example, and you have to kind of have faith in them that whatever they tell you they're going to do is the right decision. So they're making basically a decision for you based on their experience in their profession.
Should people put their trust in this podcast?
I think people should trust us to help them with their English and nothing more. Definitely not with doing any of the things on our list of 10 stupid things that people do. Don't do those things. They're not very helpful. Now it's your turn to practice your English. What is the stupidest thing you've ever done? Why don't you get in touch, record your voice on our messaging service, and use the expressions that we've introduced during this podcast? You can send us your messages by going to speakpipe.com. That's speakpipe.com/Ingles podcast. Or you could send us an email with a comment or question. Write to me, Craig, Craig, @inglespodcast.com, or Reza at belfastreza, REZA, @gmail.com.
And if you're a Spanish speaker and you want to improve your English with free or paid resources, you could visit the Mansión Inglés website. That's at mansioningles.com. And specifically for paid products, you can browse the online store. That's at store.mansioningles.net. And there's a link in the show notes to that.
We want to say a huge thank you to all of our lovely Patreon supporters who help to keep this podcast going. And you too can join our Patreon program and support this podcast. By doing so, you get instant access to the transcriptions every week so that you can read every word that we say. And you're invited to a Zoom chat with me so that you can informally practice your English once a month. Go to patreon.com, patreon.com/Ingles podcast. Links to everything, as always, will be in the show notes at inglespodcast.com/575.
Again, a huge thank you to all of our Patreon sponsors.
And on next week's podcast, again, thanks to friend of the show, Carmen, for an excellent suggestion. We're going to be speaking about arts and crafts in English. So join us next week for some vocabulary on that topic. Until then, thank you for listening. Have a wonderful week. It's goodbye from Reza.
And it's goodbye from Craig.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later.